Did you know that depression affects nearly 13% of all adolescents and adults in the United States every year? That is why in recent years, researchers have been dedicated to finding treatments for mental health disorders. One of the most widely used and well-researched methods of treatment for anxiety and depression is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs. These drugs involve a series of complex neurophysiological mechanisms, so let's break them down. SSRIs are a class of antidepressant drug that is used to treat many mental health conditions, the most prevalent one being depression. As you may have guessed, SSRIs regulate the amount of serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is a type of neurotransmitter, or chemical messenger, whose purpose is to regulate mood. Depression is usually marked by low levels of serotonin in the brain, so to treat it, we need to increase serotonin. This image shows the synaptic cleft, the space where the axon of a presynaptic neuron meets the dendrite of the postsynaptic neuron, and where messages are conveyed to nearby neurons. Synapses spread all over the brain and body to carry messages throughout. In the presynaptic terminal, we'll see these white circles, which represent the vesicles. These are discrete packets that contain the neurotransmitters. When an action potential travels to the synapse, it signals to the vesicles to bind to the presynaptic membrane and release their neurotransmitters, in this case, serotonin, into the synaptic cleft. Since the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron are held close together by scaffolding proteins, once the serotonin is released, it can bind directly to the postsynaptic receptors specific to that neurotransmitter, represented by the black rectangles in this image. Eventually, all the receptors will have serotonin bound to them, and there is still more neurotransmitter left in the synaptic cleft. Since we depleted most of the supply in the presynaptic neuron, we have to somehow get that serotonin back into its vesicles to be released again. This is done through a process called reuptake. Specialized proteins in the presynaptic terminal, called serotonin transporters, or SERT, take the neurotransmitters back into the cleft so the vesicles can be refilled and prepped for release when the next action potential comes its way. Now, what would happen if these proteins didn't work? This is what happens under the influence of SSRIs. Since the serotonin cannot get back into the presynaptic terminal, there's only one direction for it to go. It will continue to bind to the postsynaptic receptors. This makes the effects of serotonin release last much longer than it would if reuptake was functional. Therefore, serotonin will continue to exert its effect on the postsynaptic cell without more action potentials from the presynaptic cell. So, in disorders such as depression, when the body is not signaling the presynaptic cell to release serotonin as much as it should, we can stimulate that action using SSRIs. Where in the brain is all this action occurring, and how does it impact our mood? The largest section of serotonin-releasing neurons lies in the dorsal raphe nucleus of the brainstem. The axons of these neurons send their dendrites all over the forebrain to carry out important functions. Some important areas to note include the amygdala, hypothalamus, and the ventral tegmental area. The amygdala is critical for emotional processing, especially fear. When serotonin signals to the amygdala, it regulates your emotional response. When the hypothalamus receives signals from serotonin, it regulates homeostatic mechanisms, such as body temperature and sleep regulation. Finally, the ventral tegmental area is involved in our reward system, and serotonin modulates the ability to develop addiction. Outside of behavior, serotonin also projects to many other areas of the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system to regulate other autonomic functions. Now that you understand how serotonin transmission and reuptake works, we now need to understand what it does. Serotonin can exhibit either excitatory or inhibitory effects, depending on the subtype of receptor it is binding to. The postsynaptic cell often triggers a cascade of second messengers to create many different physiological effects, such as changes in heart rate, changes in blood pressure, increased insulin production, increased glucose uptake, and increased digestion. When your body has the right amount of serotonin, it can improve your quality of sleep, decrease feelings of anxiety, boost your mood, regulate your stress response, and help with forming and maintaining new memories. A common question people might have is it possible to have too much serotonin in your body? Yes, it is possible. Too much serotonin resulting from too high of a dose of an SSRI or combination with other serotonin increasing drugs can result in serotonin syndrome. The symptoms range from mild to life-threatening. On the mild end, you can experience flu-like symptoms, anxiety, and agitation. When more severe, symptoms can include irregular heartbeat, tremors, unconsciousness, seizures, and death. Fortunately, research has shown that SSRIs are safe and serotonin syndrome is uncommon when used as prescribed. In conclusion, SSRIs are a safe and effective medication for many who suffer from mental illness. While the mechanisms are complicated, I hope this video has helped you to understand the process better. Thank you for watching.